Good morning, Madam Clerk. Would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Moore.
Here.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Present.
Chairman Conway.
Present.
7 present. You have a quorum.
Good morning, members of the committee. First board bill we'll pick up is board bill number 45. We had our public hearing on this about 10 days ago, and at the request of the sponsor, we held it over until today. Alderman Roddy on board bill number 45.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is a board bill concerning a community improvement district for the Foundry project, which is a piece, approximately 12-acre site east of the IKEA store. And the Foundry has, the site itself has all the classic problems of a large urban development area. It has brownfields, it's obsolete manufacturing, it's an obsolete manufacturing facility. And it is probably the one site in the Midtown area that would be appropriate for a retail area. It would be a great retailing area, except for we have all these problems with the site. And we have had some opportunities over the years, dating back 10 or 15 years ago, to put in your kind of traditional suburban shopping center where you would tear down everything and just put a big parking lot up and some big box stores or something. And I guess my theory has always been that while we had an interest in that, that's not kind of part of who our brand or our identity is in the city. And I think much of what we're talking about is trying to do density and things that have enduring quality. So we've held off on doing some of that type of suburban type of retailing out there until we had a project that we thought made sense. And because so much of the buildings over there were historic and they qualified eventually for some state brownfield credits, we had someone who was very creative in their approach to the site, and they developed the site with the intent of putting in a much more urban type of retailing. So the plan is for over 300,000 square feet. We passed the incentive legislation last session, late last year, early this year, I can't remember which. And it was always anticipated that we would have a 1% community improvement sales tax and a 1% transportation development district tax to help us offset some of the costs of not only providing the money to build it, but also the money to actually maintain it. What you see is, in the city, some of our challenges, you have a whole bunch of retailers, and being able to develop marketing for them and everything has to be done on a collaborative basis, and they need some sort of central fund to do that. And so we will have quite a few different marketers in there, and then taking care of it, taking care of the site so that it's well maintained and so forth. And that was the intent of the Transportation Development District and the CID. And additionally, of course, rather than having a sea of parking, we wanted to go ahead and squeeze in more retailing and things like that. So we're going to have some additional structured parking. Eventually, I think the first phase is about 300,000 square feet, of which about 200,000 would be retail, over 200,000. Eventually, we anticipate office development occurring there and residential. So this is just the initial phase. One of the things that we're trying to do is this is immediately east of the Cortex district. So Cortex is about 180 acres to the west of this. IKEA is kind of that is the northeast kind of corner of the Cortex district. Then we have this project, which and immediately east of the Cortex district is the 400 acres that we created for the St. Louis University St. Louis University recently enacted redevelopment plan that the Alderwoman from the 19th and I co-sponsored, and we did that as well last year. So what I have been trying to do, and of course working with the 19th, and I guess I've been trying to do this because it's mostly the Cortex is in my area, is to try to get the two development areas to cooperate and have kind of a unified approach so that, A, they're not necessarily trying to out-incentive, the chairman's telling me to speak up. I'm sorry.
You're all over the center of the city. We're on this bill.
Okay, so we're trying to get them all to work together. One of the areas that we're interested in is transportation. This is a little bit, we're asking, we haven't figured it out yet, but we've carved out 0.25% of the community improvement district to start going into an area-wide transportation solution so that when people come to the area who may not have a car or who work in the area who may not have a car and get off a Metrolink stop, that they can get to their jobs. That somebody comes in the area and they can get around to all the big people things. Now, we haven't figured this out, and it may end up not happening, in which case the 0.25% will go back into letting them take care of the project better and their own security and stuff, but we're really trying to get all of these entities to work together. So what this does is it says, hey, we're gonna give the area as a whole an opportunity for about 2 years to figure out how to make this all work, and if it doesn't work, well then the money will go back to them, and then they can go ahead and use it for their own security and upkeep of their own project, so.
All right, you have an amendment on this bill?
Yes, and that's what the amendment does. That's amendment number 1 on board bill number 5. And I should have probably asked you to take up the amendment before I explained it, but that's, I'm out of order,
Okay.
what can I say?
I will move that we adopt amendment number 1 to board bill number
Second.
45.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that amendment number 1 to board bill number 45 be adopted. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Chairman Conway.
Aye.
8 aye votes.
Before us now is board bill number 45. Are there any other questions of the sponsor? Of the sponsor? Alderwoman Howard.
What will this bring the total sales tax up for this district?
Okay, well, this is the first project that we're doing, so if that project goes through and, Bill, is it confidential if I kind of talk? Well, their projected sales tax numbers were part of the board bill, so yeah, about $80 million is what they're projecting for this.
No, I'm saying
No.
the rate.
Percentage, and it would be
Right.
Sales tax.
11.1 with that's with the 0.5% that was approved in April.
And this will be also a retail development, mixed use?
There's there's elements of retail there as well.
Okay.
And then the sales tax numbers for, it's been, Cortex area, just the IKEA store alone has resulted in over $1 million this last year for the city of new money.
Sales tax.
Yeah, right, and that's net new money to the city, so they're doing over $100 million a year in that range over in the IKEA store.
Very good. That's all I have, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I move that we pass board bill number 45 out of committee with a due pass
Second.
recommendation
Second.
as amended. There's been a request for previous roll. Seeing no objection, board bill number 45 comes out of committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we have board bill number 83. It's also companion bill with 89. We have Mr. Garavaglia from the comptroller's office to give us an overview of what these two bills are. Last week, I think we had passed out at the housing committee the TIF for it's the building across the street in the parking lot behind me. Not behind me, but just to the south of the building behind me. Mr. Garavaglia, and then would you also, just in your initial presentation, just tell me how the comptroller's office came up with that price?
Sure will. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As the chairman stated, we would like to present these as companion bills today for your consideration. Board Bill number 83 is proposing the sale of the long vacant municipal courts building to a development team, which has a solid plan, we believe, to convert that building into a name-recognized hotel, a name-recognized chain. The Board Bill number 89, the purchase price for that is $2.4 million. The back lot is also, it's Board Bill number 89. It's the sale of the upper City Hall parking lot. It is a companion bill to this one in that there must be a parking solution for the hotel in that there will be no self-park. It'll all be valeted. And this is the companion bill to get final approval from the national hotel chain. They needed to have the parking locked down. So the price on the back lot is $2 million. The price, Mr. Chairman, on the back lot, when we looked at pricing it, there are no comps. There are no areas of 2 acres anywhere in the downtown area per se that we can get an appraisal really done on. We talked to the assessor's office. We talked to a couple of independent real estate companies, and basically we set the price at roughly $1 million an acre. Now, along with that, as you all will recall, not only did the old city jail occupy a portion of that, but the old juvenile children's home occupied the corner closest to 14th and Clark. And we're not sure exactly what extra work environmentally and structurally to stabilize what they intend to build there. They intend to build a parking garage at some point. And so we're not sure what additional costs are going to be incurred there. And so everything being equal, they will assume that liability. They will assume any environmental. They have agreed to pay us roughly $1 million an acre as is.
Okay, and what does the comptroller intend to do with these funds?
In the board bills, both in 83 and 89, we thought, and she's reflected long on this, in the fall of last year, many of you have heard about the downgrade that Fitch Rating Agency gave the city. They knocked us down 3 points, 3 notches, plus gave our city bonds and future borrowing a negative outlook, which was pretty rough. And one of the biggest criticisms in their downgrade was the fact that per their parameters for judging how we look to outside investors is the fact that our reserves are not growing. And so with both board bills, she is requesting that we designate that $4.4 million go to fund balance to support the general fund balance and prop up our numbers quicker so when they come back and you know, I've neglected to say, as Moody's this spring gave us a 1-notch downgrade with a negative outlook. So we're trying to respond to that, and so that when they come back next year, we were able to show some improvement in that regard, that we have listened and we're trying to prop up our reserves. So that's built into each bill in Section 5, I believe, putting it to the general fund balance.
All right.
Up with us today for the city, we have Tom Ray, who's worked on the board bills, but the developers are from out of town. Representing them today is Rob Preston from Spencer Fane, and he, if you
we
like,
have questions.
we have questions, yes, absolutely.
All right. Alderwoman Davis.
I'm glad to hear that the money is going to be used for the reserve. That was something that we've been having a lot of problems with for the last 4 or 5 years, and so that's good to hear. It'd be nice if we could get some of our other money too. But I like the project, even though I'm gonna be watching, I like the project, okay?
Alderman Moore.
I noticed that there's a lot of movement over at the building, so supposing we don't pass this out, do they lose their money? I mean, it's very active over there. They're already working on the building, so have we sold the building to them already?
No, you're seeing a lot of activity at the Scott Trade Center for sure. They have begun.
Over right there at the.
Yeah,
over
well,
this court.
if anything, it's taking some sampling. They've done some sampling for environmental remediation. They have access to the building to complete some architectural work and assess the environmental side of it. But no work has begun. They don't have any opportunity to claim, ownership at this point. This is controlled with these bills.
We had an opportunity to go in there about a week or so ago, so I know Alderman Boyd and myself. It was the housing committee before they did it. It's a mess in there.
Okay, the parking. I know there's gonna be 14 aldermen later on, so how are we gonna divide that parking?
Well, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, could I ask Rob Preston to speak to that?
Yeah, Rob, just set that down and walk down to that end chair. Rob, identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is Robert Preston of the offices of Spencer Fain, and I represent the developer, both developers. The question is understood, how are they going to address the parking
How are we gonna get
situation?
into the parking, into our parking area with the hotel there, and you valet parking? What's gonna happen with the aldermen or the city officials that has to come down that hill? Are you gonna redirect us?
There will be some redirection over the course of the project with the, so on the south lot, it's gonna be a parking for sure, but there's gonna be mixed use in there as well. There'll be some first floor retail, some upper.
That's not how he's getting to his parking spot.
Well, the existing access will be diverted down to, we're still working with the traffic department and our traffic engineers, but we anticipate a two-way thoroughfare from off of Clark Street, right at 13th. That would provide access to that lot as well as the Alderman parking lot.
So what about the overflow? When you overflow, are you anticipating building a garage later?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll remain surface spots for the short term, and then they're going to put up, in the mixed use, there'll be parking spots to replace those that have been displaced by the construction.
I'm gonna be
Alright,
one of
Alderman
the
Vaca-
14 aldermen. I wanna make sure I have a way to park.
The developer is savvy enough to know that the aldermanic parking spots are to be protected.
Alderman Vaccaro.
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard.
My question is, we will realize 4.4 million into reserves for this. What is the cost saving by getting, handling and retaining property is expensive and a drain on the city in many ways. Has anyone looked at the cost savings by selling this property? What will we, be able to save?
Well,
Because we
I
don't
don't
no
know
longer
that we
own
can
this?
give you a big number. By design, facilities management has only been doing a minimum to secure the building over these past few years, and we have kept some steam in the building to keep it from totally deteriorating, but the costs are probably less than $100,000 a year over the years to just maintain until we found the right opportunity. So there's not going to be a huge savings
Well,
per
but that's
se.
still a savings
It
that
is a
comes back
savings.
to the city and could both add to our
Yes, ma'am.
reserves.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Murphy.
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No question.
Alderman Muhammad.
I'm new. What does fund balance mean?
Well, on the balance sheet, on the city's balance sheet, when over a period of time, we accumulate the excess of revenue over expense on a year-to-year basis. It's the fund from which in times of an emergency or in times where we run a deficit for a fiscal year, theoretically, we draw on our fund balance to balance our operation and balance us from the standpoint so that we can pay our bills. What the rating agencies look at is in their format of evaluating the financial strength of any government entity is how much you have in reserve. Right now, ours are being viewed as insufficient based on our size and the amount of revenue that we're expected to raise and the expense level that we have yearly in our budget. And so by adding this 4.4 million, it doesn't take us all the way, but it really makes a material difference by bolstering our reserves. It's similar to, everyone likes to have a certain amount of money in the bank. And you know, if you have a house payment, you have your monthly payments, sometimes you're a little short, sometimes you're a little over. On times when you're a little over, you put it in the bank. In times when you're a little under, you can draw it out. And that's what the fund balance will do on a much greater scale for the city. It allows us that flexibility.
So how much is in the city's fund balance now?
I will email you that answer. I don't know offhand, but I will get it for you.
Let's see. I think Alderman Boyd
Thank you.
Boyd might know that.
No, I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
I had a question,
But the treasurer has a bigger reserve.
but I had a question.
Sure.
3+ million.
Rob, were there any proposals submitted or any conversations with the parking commission on participating in this project?
I don't believe so.
Because that's who pretty much deal with parking, so I'm surprised
There's-
they're not
there's-
part of the deal.
There's, at this point, there's some covenants affecting the land that would require us to engage in a conversation.
Okay,
This
The impact on
property, the upper City Hall lot is being sold subject to, there's two factors. Number one, there's an ongoing relationship, a signed agreement with the Blues to provide X number of parking spots for Blues games, and it extends into the future a considerable amount of time. That's a consideration that the new owners will have to deal with and abide by. The second one is, as you all know, back when the Keel Garage was built, there were bonds issued, and the revenue was pledged for debt service from both the lower and upper City Hall parking lot. One of the things that the owners will have to do, it's also contingent, that is another factor that they will have to deal with the parking commission and the treasurer on, is satisfying that number for a number of years. It doesn't go on forever, but if the bonds were issued, well, they've been refinanced a number of times, but the original bonds that encumbered the revenue from the upper and lower lot were issued in, I think, 1995. So if you roll forward 30 years, they probably need to come to some accommodation with the treasurer for what the upper lot would have generated for probably a period of 5 years or so. So it's being sold subject to those two considerations, which the owners must address for the future.
okay, thank you, no further questions.
And let's see, Rob, on this project, we had done a TIF.
There's a redevelopment plan in place that declares the whole area blighted, but as of right now, as far as tax increment financing goes, it's just on the hotel. In order to get tax increment finance and other incentives, we'd have to go back, file new bills with respect to the parking lot.
Okay, and then on the building, then we'll get half of the real estate taxes.
No, half of all the sales taxes that come through.
Okay, and the real estate taxes, so the whole project's been tax abated?
Well, just in the way TIF works, yes, sir.
Okay, well, right, I think the contribution back should be, we split it normally on the TIF. So you get half, we get half.
That's not the way that
Okay,
this isn't that's typically the way a more traditional abatement would work.
Alderman Moore, did you have a question?
Yes. Are you telling me we can just take that parking lot out of the budget of the treasurer, since they control the parking, is the treasurer controlling that parking lot now?
The treasurer manages the lot for the city, yes.
So we've been communicating with the treasurer's office, letting them,
There have been extensive discussions over the last 2.5 years regarding this development project with the treasurer's office, that's correct.
and they're okay with it.
There have been extensive discussions with the treasurer's office regarding this project.
I'm just wondering, you know, she's got that in her budget, is how much money? Do we know how much money that lot generate for us a year?
We do not, and that's been one of the points of discussion. That information has been solicited for the entire duration of our discussions and has not been forthcoming
And not forthcoming on whose part?
on the treasurer's part.
Get on that, Johnson.
Alderman, I think there's just a disagreement with the way that the bonds work. Ownership of the property, there is also opportunity for our office to build a garage. That's what we do. We own several garages along Clark Street. We manage several facilities, including a lot outside. We have, of course, Keel and the Williams lot. With that being said, I think the conversation should have been resolved before this particular bill went forth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me have my moment with Mr. Johnson.
All right. I will move that we pass board bill number 83 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second, previous roll.
It's been moved and seconded board bill number 83 come out of committee with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Seeing no objection, board bill number 83 comes out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Next, I would move that we pass board bill number 89 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second, previous roll.
It's been moved and seconded board bill number 89 come out of committee with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Seeing no objection, board bill number 89 comes out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Okay.
Let's see, we're trying to wrap up things on the budget. We have to pass the budget today, perfect and suspend out there. Because that's our duty by June 30th. If we don't, it reverts back, just for those of you that haven't seen it before, but it's not happened on my watch, but we would revert back to the budget that E&A sent over if we don't pass the budget as amended. And that's not exactly what you wanted during all of the hearings we had on the budget. I will also address a little bit the refuse. It came out of Streets Committee, the $3, and Prop S, just because collectively I want to make sure that the rest of our colleagues, like you, understand the big picture of what's going on and what we're doing to address some of the short and long-term shortfalls that we have in front of us. Do we? Who has a bill? Oh, well then, put her on. What day next week would you like to be here?
What is it convenient for you, Thursday?
Thursday. Okay. Thank you, meeting adjourned.